This is about is we have a project called Games for Seva, where we're developing Vedic games. We've been running our Vedic program for 25 years, as you all have been doing the same thing. And we all know the struggles of teaching Balvihar. It's a unique community. And we're constantly trying to work with curriculum that's old and yet new, coming up with new ideas. So the idea behind all of this is to make something that can be reused. So in the last 3 years, we've created many things. It's been a teamwork with all of us, adults, youth, myself, our teachers, to come up with things that we can use in multiple ways. And we've come up with something called a teacher's kit, like a family kit, which has about 8 games. And it looks something like this, and I'll quickly go over it with you. It has 8 games that can be used for hundreds of hours of different types of activity. And one of the hardest things we found, and Raji, where's Raji?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, Raji leads our Vedic program. And one of the things we found, which you all are probably in the same boat, you're teaching something and then you want to have an activity that is fun, which engages the kids, gets them to communicate with you, and have that collaborative sense. This is probably not the way we all grew up learning, but this is the need of the hour. So our games are designed to be collaborative, communicative, and creative. And there are possibilities. It's not just one thing. You can take one game and make multiple things out of it based on the teacher's imagination. So without further ado, I will just get into what's in this kit. So the plan for this evening is like this. I'm going to talk for a few minutes, and then we'll split up for about an hour. And the way we'll do it is we've got 4 stations, and you all could split up into 4 groups, and 15 minutes at each table. So that way you get some in-depth sense of what it is. You won't be able to play an entire game because that'll take time. And then you'll move to the next table, and the kids will explain what that game is all about. And coming from the teaching background, you yourself will know, oh, I could use it here, or I could use it there, and you may have questions, or you may have, who knows, so many creative ideas. So and then after that, we'll have some food also after this. And then we'll close with some question answers and what have you. Feel free to ask these kids a lot of questions. They know all the answers. They know everything, actually. So, and we have 2 special gifts of this kit for each of your institutions, for the Hindu temple and for Sai Mandir, which is that little gift bag. So we'll give it at the end of, Vijay, am I covered the portion? Okay, so what's in this kit? I've got 4 groups of games that I want to show you. One is, we have one set of games that use Bhagavad Gita values from chapter 10, 13, and 16. And these are those classic values that we imbibed. So we have a memory game, which has, it's called Memory Maya, which is the values, which actually I don't want to open it now. When you're at the table, you will see it. And it's a classic memory game. But you can take any of these cards or combination of cards and make a skit out of it, make a story out of it. They're all art designed by one of Ria's older sister, Isha, and this is how she conceived. I just happened to pick up the card on Ahimsa, and so this is her artwork. So part of our job was to collect this kind of artwork, and it shows it shows do you say it's a broken heart? A little bit of a broken heart, maybe a repaired heart. So it's open to interpretation. So this is one game which is based on the memory concept. So each card appears twice, and you play the old-fashioned memory game. And then you can take subsets. One of our youngest age group used this game, and the teacher took just 6 pairs, Vidya, right? And she played that with 4-year-olds, very young group. And then the kids came up with their own representation of what they thought that picture meant. So it's about introducing concepts in a different way, and it could be combined with whatever curriculum you are teaching in a fun manner. So this is Memory Maya, and with that we have another memory game which is called Hindu Symbology, and this works a little differently than this one. We have the pictures, we have the art, and then we have the words, and then you got to match them. So when you're at the table, you will see the contents, and along with this is a coloring kit of the same symbols that happen to be in the memory game. With me so far? So this is on like the memory principles, so a bunch of kids are going to be doing this. And we have really a very popular game which seems to teach a lot, this Vice to Virtue. It's, any of you played Apples to Apples? Anyone here? Okay, so it's basically that principle. We have adults who play the game. So basically we have one deck which is the values, same Bhagavad Gita values we talked about, and one deck which is a larger deck which has just topics from, topics of, they came up with the topics. And then you match it, and in that process develop some understanding of what that value could be used for. So that's one. And then we have one table, we're going to have something called Karma Katch, which deals with Papa and Punya. Now Papa, Punya, Dharma, Karma, as you know as teachers very well, those are such tough topics, very tough topics. So 1 year, I think this was our first project, we developed Papa Punya scenarios. So there are like 80 cards here. Each one has been developed by our kids in contemporary language of Punya dilemmas, Punya situations and Papa dilemmas, and then we've scored them from 1 to 5. So what is a 5 Papa versus a 1 Papa? So this again you can use, first of all, to play the game, which our kids will show, and you can use them in so many ways to discuss topics that are contemporary in terms of right, wrong, not sure, that sort of thing. We have Ramayana matchup, which matches a question to an answer. So the idea is that there are 2 separate cards, and you can do a quick racing game. It's a standard thing. It's a little different take on quizzes. And we have something called SpeakUp, which is again the values, which is played like taboo. You've all played taboo, right? So this is like taboo. So that's one. And lastly, we have what we call our acts, which is wisdom cards from the Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavad Purana. And the idea behind this is we have created a group of dilemmas, contemporary dilemmas, which you can apply the wisdom to. And this is a game where you figure out who's the best match, and you win points, and then you win the game. The idea is to have a lot of fun. That is actually number 1. And in that process, you learn. Because we all study our stories, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Panchatantra, what have you, but we really don't go into the wisdom typically. We want them to remember a lot of things, 100 characters, all their various qualities, and then in some senses we lose the wisdom because where's the time, So this way we captured. And by the way, this something like this was done by our kids over 1 year, developing their quotations we took out. So it was just the background work. So the kit comes something like this with these 8 games, something like this. So that's what we've got there, the games. Some of you looked at it. We're calling this kit Wisdom Without Borders. And Vijaya, I've told Vijaya that all of us today, we wanted to launch, with all your blessings, something called Project 25, which is we want to, our group, especially all these kids have actually made a commitment, they don't know about it yet, is to raise the money to sponsor 25 teachers. I know we've talked about it, right? And today seems to be a perfect launch date because you're all teachers, So we wanted to give back. We all have learned so much, we want to give back. And I personally feel, and I think all the teachers here will agree, the Bal Vihar teachers are the most underserved community in terms of resources. Somehow we're meant to, make the time, show up. We don't know what state our kids are going to come, and then we have to prepare our material. Some days it works, some days it doesn't work. It really is not easy. And I personally feel very strongly, I know Raji does, that we have to continue to make that part easier. It's harder and harder to get FaceTime, right? It's so hard. So when you get your kids for 45 minutes, 1 hour, whatever the time, it's so precious. So these tools hopefully will help make that time, precious, and worthwhile. So we have all that, and anything else I can cover? We'll split up, less talk, more do. Anything, Madhu, you want to add?
Upcoming games.
Upcoming games. Okay. We have a few things which is maybe next round after a year. I'm working on a Bhagavad Gita series, which later on when you finish playing the games, we can come and take a look. So we have a game called Ganga, which is our next big release, because this is ready to go. It is not a simple, well, this is called a full-bodied game. It'll take 40, how many minutes will it take, Manav?
45 minutes.
45 minutes to play. Yeah, I said Manav and I looked at Arya. Okay, sorry. But Arya played it last Varshvidya. So this is a beautiful game. What we'll do is once you've finished seeing all the game, I'll keep it in a table. It has 32 cards of the river Ganga, the goddess, her stories, and it has all the living creatures, living units that need the water. It's a competitive game. Like the race is to save the river so that the community that depends on the river survives. So it's our contribution to the goddess, and this is what we call an eco-dharma game. So in the process, how many of you, well, the kids who developed it are kind of not here, but you all have played it, right? Have you all played it? Yeah?
I think so.
Okay. So we have Battle of Purusharthas. Again, very difficult concepts. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Extremely difficult concepts to explore with kids. So we have a game that actually fully functions, ready to go. But today we're not doing that. This is again a game that will take, how long will it take, guys, to play? 40 minutes? 40 minutes? It's a full-bodied game. It's, you play it, you compete, and then you build your arthas and, your karma points, and then you win the game. So, and it could be a team game too. So with that, anything else, Madhu? So with that, let's split up, guys. You know which team?
Yeah, let's start that is one of your cards. We split these cards among how many.
The timing part, I think 1 minute is kind of insufficient. Because it's a dilemma. We have to make just reading that will take you 1 minute.
So out of all three,
Just comprehend it.
I picked best surprise. I have to improve it.
So that word at the top is what you have to guess. Once they act this out, these are the words you're not allowed to say. It'll take a guess. Or you can, whichever you can say word. Or you can play like a spin-off version where you take one word from group A, you take one word from group B, and then you use that to make a story to help the person guess the word at the top.